don't think I need a microphone. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Yeah. I'm Lev Y Yampolsky. I'm going to talk to you about amphipods from Lake Baikal. Lake Baikal in Siberia is the oldest, the deepest, and the largest in terms of volume freshwater lake on Earth. By sediments in the bottom of this rift lake, estimates vary up to 16, by some estimates even 25 million years since the start of the geological history of the lake. It's about 700 kilometers long and contains about 1/5 of the world's surface unfrozen fresh water, just about equal volume to all North American Great Lakes combined, with I'll try. So about 1/5 of fresh water on the planet is in Lake Baikal, another 1/5 in Great Lakes in North America, another 1/5 in Great African Rift Lakes, and the remaining 1/5 here in Amazon River, and the remaining 1/5 everywhere else in the rest of the world. So it's a huge lake that contains a very large volume of water, and it's very old lake. It has a very long turnover time, despite that the mineralization is quite low. And can I maybe ask you to press the button? Just in next to this. Maybe I broke it. And it's extremely cold. It spends at least 5 months frozen, and never really warms up during the summer months. During the winter months, the ice is so thick that it's safe to drive on top of the ice, except when it is not. If you dive underneath the ice, you will see that this is, by the way, the same guy as in the previous photo rescuing a car. You will see that the landscape underwater is dominated by a number of endemic species flocks. There is a species flock of sponges. There is a species flock of sponges. There is a species flock of planarians, 3 independent radiations of gastropods, some of them shown in this picture. This planarian, by the way, is pretty huge, up to 50 centimeters long, which is a lot for planarians. And species flocks of sculpins, and perhaps most famously the species flock of amphipods that contain about 250 species, depends on who counts. Lake Baikal amphipods reach a quite remarkable diversity of sizes, colorations, and lifestyles. Many species possess these strong body armors, various types of spines, keels, and bumps. not commonly present in freshwater amphipods. Many are of really bright colors. This picture does not do justice to this species called Yampolsky, which is really bright indigo with slight transition to red on the back of the animal. They're really pretty amazing. There are specialized predators, specialized detritivores species, specialized scavengers like this species, specialized abyssal species that never occur above 500 meters of depth. Unlike great African rift lakes, Baikal is fully oxygenated to the largest depth. Probably it has to do with low temperatures in the lake and low mineralization, so there's no shortage of oxygen. There are specialized parasites of sponges. I'll mention it briefly a little later, and there are even specialized parasites of other amphipods. Finally, there is one species that completely abandoned the traditional amphipod crustaceans benthic lifestyle and moved into the plankton and into the water column and lives entirely, conducts an entirely plankton lifestyle. Obviously, for any of you who are familiar with great African rift lake cichlids, or Hawaiian honey creepers, or South American tanagers, as we heard in this session earlier, this all reminds really of the same story. Highly adaptive radiation within a more or less isolated habitat with strong endemism and biogeographic isolation, and enormous amount of morphological and ecological diversification. So what I've been telling you is really similar to what people know very well about great African rift lake cichlids, for instance, and not only cichlids, also great African also Lake Tanganyika gastropods. And also there are examples from other groups of amphipods. For instance, there is a parallel radiation, some with quite remarkable similarities in Caspian Sea. Obviously, such similarities require common explanations, and it is difficult not to remind you here about the ultimate empty world adaptive radiation, the Cambrian explosion, when many morphological and ecological adaptations appeared all of a sudden, at least as we can judge from 500 million years later. Obviously, to ask questions about the origin and patterns of diversification, we need a reliable phylogeny. So we, in collaboration with Alex Kondrashov's lab, we embarked on the goal to do a transcriptome, a whole transcriptome phylogeny. So far, we now I show you all the results. My job is done. We collected 75 species out of 250 or so described. We have currently 66 transcriptomes with lots of Illumina reads per species, and we have identified about 40,000 clusters of orthogonal genes. This is very much a work in progress because with that amount of next generation sequencing data, there is a quite challenging, daunting, I would even say, amount of computational bioinformatics work and computational burden. So we don't have full orthologization yet. Anyway, this is the phylogeny based on those orthologs we are fairly sure about. It's definitely a more conservative subset of genes. Let me dwell a little bit on this phylogeny and tell you a few things that we can learn from it. First of all, the general picture is that it quite confirms traditional morphology-based taxonomy for most places, except for several places where it doesn't. Several genera appear to be polyphyletic or paraphyletic. What is important is that it is pretty clear, with quite strong bootstrap support, that there has been 2 invasions of amphipods into Lake Baikal, two independent radiations, one of which falls entirely within the genus Gamarus, which is a cosmopolitan traditional morphology amphipod that is widespread throughout Eurasia and North America. You can also see, shown in red, are clades in which various body armor evolved, spines, keels, or bumps, and that occurred at least 5 times with 1, 2 reversals to traditional morphology. There are a few quite unexpected things that we discovered. I'd like to mention in particular the relationship between an amphipod parasitic on other amphipods and its host, to our great surprise, that turned out to be sisters, which suggests a rather crazy idea about the evolution of this parasitism through brooding. Amphipods carry broods in their brood chamber. This is where this Pachychesis parasitic amphipod lives in their hosts. Initially, probably this was a conspecific brood parasitism in a way. Now, various subspecies of this parasite moved into other large-body amphipods. This is just a nice natural history story I wanted to mention. Let's move, though, from natural history to more serious questions. You can, of course, ask many different questions about this radiation, about its origin, about the reasons why it is so isolated from the rest of freshwater fauna. Today, I just want to focus on patterns of diversity. How would you explain a very high diversity within a particular biogeographic group or clade? You can either hypothesize that this clade invaded an empty world where all the niches were empty, and that allowed quick differentiation. That would imply the speciation rate should decrease over time. Alternative hypothesis is ecological neutrality, no particular ecology involved in speciations, and the whole explanation is in the fact that Baikal is a long-lived habitat with long-lived stable habitat. Give a clade enough time, and it will speciate enough to generate this diversity. Speciation rate should be constant. Finally, you can hypothesize that speciation rate can increase over time because diversity begets diversity, so to say. As Baikal species flock it increases in its species richness, it creates new species, and also other species flocks evolving in parallel in the same lake create new species as well. For instance, evolution of sponges species flock generated new niches for sponge parasites. The second thing I want to look at is what happens with two selective constraint during this diversification. So, okay. First, let's look at speciation rate. Maybe I should use this clicker to go back all the way to the phylogeny and point out that you can see just visually that there were lots of short branches early in the evolution, at least of the gammaride, the second clade, followed by much longer niches. This is confirmed by This is confirmed by maximum likelihood analysis of speciation rate. Depending on which model you use, this drop in speciation rate, it can be very drastic or not so drastic. But at any rate, you can see that lineage over time plot is rather logistic, suggesting the speciation rate is decreasing. Finally, we can look at DS-DN ratio calculated for branches of different depths in the phylogeny, and it appears that it had a maximum just around the time when majority of speciation occurred, suggesting that perhaps there has been relaxation of selection or positive selection acting during speciation that was involved in the process. To conclude, diversification rate decreased over time in the two radiation of Baikal amphipods. They appear to be high even now, despite apparent tight niche packaging. Selective constraints were the lowest, DNDS the highest, during the phase was the highest, during the phase of the highest speciation rate. At this point, I want to say obrigado to various people who are involved in the study, Alex Kondrathov's lab and my lab, people at Baikal, people who provided software for the analysis. Some of them are here in the lab, in this audience, hello, and our funding sources. Thank you very much.